The golfer profiles page allows you to deep dive any golfer in the database. And this main page here will allow you to narrow that down if you would like to golfers who are active, those that are not retired. They've put up a certain number of rounds in the last few years, those that are in a field, any field this week, or those that you have favorited while you've been traversing around RickRunGood.com. So, if we go through and click on Scotty Scheffler's name, for example, we'll be taken to his own golfer profile page, which does have its own URL. So you could link to this, you could bookmark this, you could save it for later, and you're immediately met with a lot of information. So across the top is his recent tournaments for both fantasy points and his fantasy salary in a way that you can kind of see the trends of both of those. Below is his results table, which is currently set to just the most recent seasons, but you could go and add in more seasons all the way until the start of Scotty Scheffler's career and much earlier than that for other golfers. And you can apply those filters. You could also look for specific golf courses like Albany Golf Club and see how he has played in specific years at specific courses, at specific tournaments, or if you just want to see Scotty Scheffler's major championship performance, that is available for you as well. Additionally, when you click on the name of a tournament, it will drop down and show you individual round stats. So the strokes gain metrics are being broken down by individual rounds. And then on the top line, they are being summed up for the entirety of the tournament, along with obviously pertinent information like finishing position, salary, fantasy points, ownership in DFS slates, and then also his odds to have won that week. On the left-hand side, you're going to get a visual representation of Scotty Scheffler and his skill set based on the last 100 rounds. And you can see that he has been excellent off the tee, excellent on approach, excellent around the green, and very, very poor with the putter. This dotted circle around the middle, that is the tour average. So if Scotty's stat is outside of that, he is better than the tour average, or if he is worse than that, his stat is inside the dotted tour average circle. A couple of more visuals here for last 24, last 50, and last 100 rounds to show you the general trend direction in which your golfer is in. Now for Scotty Scheffler, it's pretty much up and to the right at this point. The rankings is a nice little way to just kind of see different skill sets. Now I'll show you a different golfer because Scotty is just, in the 97th, 98th, 99th, or 100th percentile for basically every single stat except for putting, where he is obviously much worse. So you can quickly see the way that he ranks up against not only active players, but if he was in a current field, you'd be able to see that too. And I'll show you an example of that. Let's go to Denny McCarthy, for example. So I'm going to search for Denny McCarthy, and you can see there's a ton of Denny's in the history. The one that I want is Denny McCarthy. And when his stat profile loads here, you'll see all of his information come through. You get a different look. Obviously, very good putter, not as good in some of the other areas as Scotty Scheffler is, but he is in a field this week. So this is against all active players, basically everybody in the world of golf. But if you want to look at just how Denny McCarthy does against the current field, you'll kind of see he gets a little bit worse in strokes gained approach. He gets a little bit better in fantasy points gained. So you can compare him to not only everybody in the world, but also those who he is competing against this week. A little bit farther down on the left-hand side, this is just where all the Rick Run Good content feeds into. So you can quickly come here and read the newsletter, or you can go to the YouTube DFS preview or the live chat, whatever else you want to look at. That's going to be linked here on the left-hand side. And then if we go down below the results tab, and you see there's a lot of results in here, including Corn Ferry Tour data, right? There are 6 tours that are represented here. I'll show you a great example of that in just one second. I mean, all of this Corn Ferry Tour data for Denny McCarthy. If we go below that, you're going to get the season by season stats based on off the tee, approach play, putting, scoring, and a variety of other things. If you want to click around and go to different years, you can do that and see how he has transitioned over time. Just an easy way, again, to be able to see skill sets and compare over time and to his peers. Let me show you a really good example of a couple of things here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go to Phil Mickelson. And again, I can just start typing names here in the upper right-hand corner and it'll show me all the options that I have available. So I'm going to click on Phil. And Phil has a ton of data. So he's obviously been playing golf for a very, very long time. So I've got all this data, and you can see for different tours. So here is his live information, his major championship information. If he plays an Asian tour event, that tour is covered as well. PGA senior tour. I think the only thing Phil doesn't have that I cover is Corn Ferry stuff. I think he predated that, quite honestly. Never played on the Corn Ferry tour, but this goes all the way back. I'm going to keep scrolling, keep scrolling, keep scrolling as far back as Phil Mickelson's very first start in 1988 at the Farmers Insurance Open. Those results are in here. Okay. So we are talking about very, very extensive stuff that might be a little bit overkill, quite honestly. And I'll always strive to be adding more to this section if and when it becomes available. The final thing that I'll leave you with here is that now the golfer profile talks to the custom model. So, for example, and I'll go to somebody who's actually playing this week so that we can see this in action. If I go to Denny McCarthy's profile page and I think, wow, this is really interesting, I'm going to favorite him. So I put a star next to his name, and then I go over to the custom model. When this custom model loads, you're going to see that if I go to the Sony Open, I am going to have a check mark next to Denny McCarthy's name. Now let's go in reverse. So if I like Brian Harman and I favorite Brian Harman here, when I go back to the golfer profiles page, Brian Harman's name and Brian Harman is going to be starred. And you see he is right there. I said the final thing already, but this is actually probably the final thing where now, again, these two tools are talking to one another. So if you are in the custom model and you want to see a golfer, you can click on Terrell Hatton's name or really any golfer's name and be taken to his golfer profile page. So these tools are getting more cohesive. They're speaking with one another, and hopefully you're enjoying the process here.